Now, let us see how did the transportation develop in England. So, in order to have perfect planning to execute, we have the raw materials as we discussed earlier, we have the skilled labor. Now, we need the transportation, as England is having the benefit of having good connectivity with water, but it also needs the purpose and roads and the railway network. So, how they were developed? So, in the process of transporting the raw materials and getting the bulk of the items, the sending of the items, the roads got spoiled. The need of roads and the canals has been highlighted. So, Mr. Mac Adams designed the Pakka roads or the macadamized roads. Macadamized roads are the roads which are built strong enough to carry tons of kgs of weight, and the canals were also made because they have good water connectivity also rather than land. As we all know, England is having islands, so it has very easy for them to travel around the England because it stays separate from Europe. So water connectivity also added very much. So the first canal which was made was first English canal, that is Worsley Canal, which was built by James Brindley in 1830, and later on thousands of kilometers of canals were built in order to have proper, good, cheapest transport system. But when we look at the Stephenson's rocket, which is a railway engine which came into existence in 1814, then the railways have brought a new outlook and they replaced the old wooden tracks with the new railway track plus iron, and the railways were made completely with iron. So the usage of iron was used, and the transport has been also comfortable when compared to the other things. They started the Stockton to Darlington. First railway line was connected in 1825, where it travelled 9 miles in 2 hours with 5 miles per hour, but it later on changed from Liverpool to Manchester by 1830, where it used to travel for every hour 30 to 50 miles per hour. So now by 1830s, the canals have started to trouble for us in the transportation process because we have cold climatic conditions, we have floods, we have drought kind of conditions, we have the frost conditions where the canals get completely blocked. So in the canals we can't travel during the time of heavy traffic because all the vessels are traveling at the same time, it gets struck. Then we have the floods, overflow, we can't make the vehicles to move at that point of time, and because of frost condition no vehicle moves, they get banned for many days. And during the drought time the canal water is very low, so we can't make the vessel to move on. So these all would be the one of the reasons which moved on the focus of attention towards the development of the railway sector and the railway engine. That changed the lives of the people. How did the lives of the people got changed? Because of the Industrial Revolution. Till now we have discussed how did the Industrial Revolution expand and how did the Industrial Revolution has reached to its extent. But now when the young people or the rich people started to think on the lines of investing their money, they were dynamic enough and risk takers. They have invested their money and that money got doubled and multiplied to the maximum extent, where the wealth got step in and huge amount of money was in their steps. Now during this period, as the factories increase, the industries increase, the number of people coming into the cities also increased, and the population which has only 2 cities in 1750 or 50,000, now we have 29 cities by 1829, which shows the overcrowded population, the scarcity of water, the scarcity of the popular houses to stay. So they were forced to stay in the slum areas where the conditions were horrible, and which led for the workers to face very unconditional or unhealthy conditions. Now the workers in 1842, when they have studied the lifespan of them, it was really scary figures, because 15 years was a lifespan of a worker if he is in the Birmingham place, it is 17 years if he is working in a Manchester, and if it is 21 years if he is working in Derby. So this is the horrible condition which shows clearly that the people or the workers are ruined like anything, or squeezed off their entire energies for continuous hours, and they were losing their lives at very young age, or less than 25 to 26 years of age, which is a miserable condition for the young people who came or migrated from the villages. This is really a sadful situation. But we also have one more condition where with the increase of population, the new diseases start to spread, the cholera, the diarrhea and all these things, and the typhoid. And only in the year 1832, nearly 31,000 people have lost their lives because of cholera, which was discovered. And one more thing is that there was no medical knowledge available for us during that period of time in order to ensure security for them. So this was a miserable condition of the workers who are working during that period. Now moving on to the concept of how are the women and children impacted on this. So if men are working, obviously in most of the villages we have a custom of women sharing the work in the farm fields, and children also coming and joining their hands, because the income of the family is very less. In order to subordinate that one, they used to work. The same situation was existent in the places of the industries also, because the entire family got migrated from the village to the cities, where they need to work in the factories because they don't have any other alternatives. And when they are working in the factories, most of the employees, the owners of the factories, would try to employ more women and children rather than men, because their salaries or their wages are very less when compared to the wages of the men. This made them to think, and most of the factories and industries have more than 50% the women employees, with the cotton industries, the spinning industries, the knitting industries, all these need women employees more. And children were especially adopted into the textile industries, where they can move on between the tightly packed boxes, they can move freely and get the things done. So in this process, women also were given strict punishments, and continuous long hours of work also forced women to get some kind of difficulties and problems. And even children used to feel exhausted. They were as coal bearers, they have to start their careers, whose age was less than 10 by the time. And many of the factory owners used to consider that this is a training period where the children has to be trained properly, so that they can use them into the factory workers further. So many children, when the case study was done, they started their careers at the less than of 8 or 10 years of age, and most of them have moved towards as a factory workers. And in the same way, women also have to work, and there are strict discipline policies and punishments which has to compulsory bind for 14 to 16 hours of work, which made them to get completely exhausted. But in order to facilitate their families and to subside the income which is very less for their husbands, which is very less, so they need to get additional incomes which is required for them. And so this made the women and children to work, and most of the women used to do lot of hard work, because they are the only source of income for the family other than their husband's sources. And children, the sad thing is, most of the children lost their lives when they were working in the factories, especially when they were in the drowsy mood. They used to fall down and they used to fall into the machines. They used to get their hands cut. They used to lose their hair because it was stuck in the machines. And all these things were the miserable conditions which has to be addressed very clearly. And this was a miserable condition which was in existence during the time of the period where they changed the lives of the entire people. Now let us move on our focus towards how was the factories development in Germany and in France.